I am 78 years old, and if there is one thing I have learned over time, it is that pain can become a routine as silent as it is dangerous. For almost a decade, the pain in my knees was my shadow. It appeared when I climbed stairs, when I went for a walk, when I simply tried to get up from a chair. At first, I thought it was tiredness, then age. But over the years, I understood that pain does not always warn you. It just settles in. I tried many things: pills, creams, massages, doctors. Some days they improved a little. Other days it seemed there was no turning back. I started to fear leaving the house alone in case I couldn't return without help. I felt slow. I felt old. I felt defeated. Until one day, by chance, I heard about ginger oil. It wasn't an advertisement. It wasn't a magic recipe. It was a simple conversation with someone like me. They said, "Try it. Just that. Try it for 5 days and then tell me." I had nothing to lose. And today I am here to tell you that that little advice changed the way I walk, and also the way I think. I applied ginger oil on my knees every night, like a little ritual. I didn't expect miracles, just a bit of relief. But what I felt, day after day, surprised me more than I can explain in words. That's why I decided to record this video, to tell you step by step what I did, how I discovered it, why it works, and most importantly, how you can try it too, from home, simply and naturally. Because if this could help me, maybe it can help you too. And before starting with everything I learned, I want to ask you a question. How old are you? And from where are you watching me? Leave it in the comments. I would love to read you, because this channel is not just mine. It belongs to all of us who are looking to age with dignity, knowledge, and above all, with less pain. The origin of pain, when knees stop supporting you. I don't remember the exact day the pain started. Like so many things in life, it came slowly, disguised as tiredness, as it's normal for your age, as it's probably the weather. At first, it was just a slight discomfort when getting up in the morning, a kind of stiffness in the knees that disappeared after moving a little. I didn't pay much attention. I thought it would pass, but it didn't. Over the months, what was once a simple discomfort became a constant annoyance. The stairs began to seem steeper. Going for a walk stopped being a pleasure and became a challenge. Even getting up from the couch required effort I hadn't noticed before. I told myself I just needed more rest, but the pain remained, persistent, silent, insistent. The worst part wasn't just the physical pain, but what it brought along. The frustration of not being able to move as before. The dependence I started to have on others. I had to ask for help carrying a bag, bending down, doing things I had always done alone. And with that dependence came something harder to bear: shame. I remember one afternoon when we went to the park with my grandchildren. They ran, played, laughed. They invited me to get up, to follow them. But my knees said no. I stayed seated, smiling on the outside, while inside I felt an emptiness. It wasn't just pain, it was the feeling of falling behind. Little by little, I started to avoid going out. I stopped climbing stairs, walking more than a few blocks. I started doing less. And when you do less, you also feel less. Less joy, less desire, less life. That was the real start of the problem. Because when the body starts to fail, so does the spirit. And if you don't do something in time, you get used to it. You resign yourself. And that is more dangerous than any pain. The journey through conventional solutions. Like most, when the pain began to settle, I went to the doctor. Not one, but several. Each with a different prescription, a new theory, a promise of relief. They gave me x-rays, tests, talked about natural wear, reduced cartilage, age, technical words that really meant one thing: this is not going to fully improve. They prescribed painkillers. Some eased the pain for a few hours, but then it came back. Others upset my stomach or made me feel dizzy. I took pills in the morning, at noon, and at night. And when it wasn't a pill, it was a cream. I tried cold gels, hot ointments, salves with hard-to-pronounce names. Each promised to be the solution. Some helped a little for a while, but it was always the same. The effect went away. The pain remained. I also tried physical therapy, sessions twice a week, guided movements, exercises, massages. For a while I felt better, but when I stopped going, everything came back as before. And the most frustrating thing was that every attempt required time, money, and energy, yet no option seemed to really change my situation. One night, after applying another of those strong-smelling creams and putting on a hot water bag, I sat on the bed and thought, what if this is forever? That question hit me like a stone, because it wasn't just the pain. It was the feeling that I was entering a stage of life where solutions are only temporary and the body no longer responds as before. I began to resign myself, to live with that pain like one lives with a shadow. And the hardest part to accept was that, although I had access to doctors, medications, and treatments, none seemed willing or able to attack the real source of the problem. They only offered patches, and I didn't want a patch. I wanted my legs back. I wanted to walk freely again. I wasn't looking for miracles, just a bit of real relief. Something that would give me, even for a moment, the feeling that I could still move without fear. And it was in the middle of that search, when I no longer expected much, that a small seed of hope appeared. A simple conversation, an unexpected piece of advice, and a word that until then I only knew from cooking: ginger. The casual discovery of ginger oil. It was an ordinary afternoon. I wasn't looking for solutions. I just went out to get some air, dragging my feet a bit, with that knee pain that had become part of my walk. I sat on a park bench, as I used to when my body allowed. Next to me was Carmen, a neighbor my age. I had always seen her walk upright, without a cane, with steady steps. That day I dared to ask her secret. She laughed softly, as if guarding a treasure. She looked at me and said, "This might sound strange, but every night I put ginger oil on my knees. That's it." I was surprised. I thought it was a joke or one of those old beliefs no one takes seriously anymore. But her tone was so calm, so sure, that I couldn't help but feel curious. Ginger. I knew it from cooking. I had seen my wife use it to flavor certain dishes, but I never imagined it could be useful for something as delicate as chronic pain. Carmen explained how she applied it. A gentle massage before sleeping, every night, without fail. She didn't promise miracles, just said, "Do it for 5 days, and then tell me." I went home with that idea lingering in my mind. At first I doubted. What could a root do? How could something so simple help where so many treatments failed? But something inside me, perhaps the tiredness of staying the same, pushed me to investigate. That night, I searched on the old computer I still have at home. I typed, "Benefits of ginger for joints." I was surprised by the amount of information that appeared. Anti-inflammatory properties, improved circulation, natural pain relief. I read studies, articles, testimonials. I discovered that ginger has been used for centuries in many cultures to treat muscle pain, inflammation, and chronic diseases. It wasn't a new trend. It was ancient wisdom. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a strange mix of hope and skepticism. What if it really worked? What if I had nothing to lose by trying? It had no side effects, no prescription needed, and it didn't cost a fortune. Sometimes, answers are not in the complicated, but in what has always been there, waiting for us to stop ignoring it. Why is ginger so powerful? After that conversation with Carmen and all the information I found, I understood that ginger is not just a root that adds flavor. It is much more than that. It is a natural medicine that many cultures have used for centuries, especially in Asia and Africa, and modern science has begun to take very seriously. The first thing I discovered is that ginger has a powerful anti-inflammatory property. That means it helps reduce inflammation inside the body. And that is fundamental, because many of the pains we feel as we age, especially in the joints, don't come only from wear and tear, but from constant inflammation that has become part of us. Ginger contains something called gingerol. It is a natural compound that acts like a soother. It not only helps reduce pain, but does so without affecting the stomach or liver, like many common pills do. It's as if the body accepts it more kindly, without rejection or unwanted side effects. But there is more. Ginger also improves circulation, and this is very important. As we age, our blood no longer flows like before. The knees, feet, hands often don't receive all the blood they need. Ginger oil, when applied with a gentle massage, stimulates that circulation. The natural warmth it produces helps blood flow better, carrying oxygen and nutrients to areas that were once more dormant. And this is not just personal experience. There are studies that confirm it. Scientists around the world have proven that ginger can reduce pain in people with arthritis, especially in the knees. In one such study, elderly adults who applied ginger oil for a few days reported less stiffness and more mobility without needing to increase their medication. The most interesting part is that it is not an invasive or expensive treatment. No special devices, needles, or constant doctor visits are needed. Just your hands, a little time, and a root that has accompanied humanity for generations. And in a world where everything seems to become more complicated, finding something so simple and effective was, for me, like discovering a piece of meaning. As if the body, finally, received something it did understand. How to prepare ginger oil at home. When I decided to try ginger oil, the first thing I thought was, and now how do I do this? But to my surprise, it wasn't complicated. You didn't need to be an expert, have special utensils, or spend a fortune. You only needed two things: time and the desire to try. I will explain how I prepared it, step by step, in the simplest way possible. First, I bought a fresh ginger root. Not powder, not capsules, but the natural root. I found it at the market, for very little money. I washed it well, peeled it with a spoon, and grated it carefully. I used about 2 tablespoons of grated ginger, enough to make a small amount of oil for several days. Then, in a small pan, I put half a cup of oil. It can be olive oil, coconut oil, or sesame oil. I used olive oil because it's what I always have at home. I heated the oil on very low heat and added the grated ginger. I let it heat for about 10 to 15 minutes without boiling, just letting the ginger release its essence. The aroma was soft, warm. When the oil was lukewarm, I removed it from the heat and let it rest. Then I strained it with a clean cloth and stored it in a glass jar, tightly closed. That was all. That simple. If you can't or don't want to prepare it yourself, there are also ready-to-use ginger oils available. But it's important they are natural, without artificial perfumes or unnecessary ingredients. The label should say pure ginger oil or a blend with a vegetable oil base. If you have doubts, look in natural product stores or trusted pharmacies. Don't buy just anything online without reading carefully. Now, how do you apply it? I do it at night, before sleeping. I warm a little oil between my palms and massage it on my knees with slow, circular, firm movements. You don't need to use much. The important thing is to be consistent. The massage helps the oil penetrate better, but also relaxes, and that's part of the process. One tip: test first on a small area of skin to make sure you don't have any reaction. Although ginger is natural, every body is different. And if you have open wounds, very inflamed varicose veins, or any skin condition, it's better to consult your doctor before applying. I turned it into a little nightly ritual, a moment for me, an act of care, of patience. And although at first I did it with doubt, over time it became something I looked forward to, not just for the effect on my knees, but because it gave me back the feeling of doing something for myself. The first night of application, expectation and doubt. That first night was special, not because I expected great results, but because for the first time in a long time, I felt I was doing something different. I prepared the bedroom calmly, closed the door, turned off the TV, and left only a lamp on with a soft light. I sat on the edge of the bed with the warm ginger oil jar in my hands. I opened it slowly. The aroma was peculiar, warm, slightly spicy, but pleasant. It reminded me of the infusions my mother made when we were children, and had a cough. There was something familiar in that smell, something that made me feel accompanied. I poured a little oil into my palms and rubbed them together. It wasn't too hot nor too cold, just at that point where the skin receives it gladly. Then I started applying it to my knees. First one, then the other. Slow movements, gently, as if learning to touch a forgotten part of my body. I can't say the pain disappeared instantly. It wasn't magic, but I did feel something different. A sensation of soft warmth, not uncomfortable, as if the skin was responding to the contact, as if something inside was slowly making its way inward. The massage lasted about 10 minutes, more than enough to relax completely. When finished, I covered my knees with a thin blanket, turned off the light, and lay down. I hadn't taken any pills. It was just me, the silence, and that faint ginger aroma still floating in the room. That night, I slept deeply. I don't know if it was the oil, the massage, or the hope I carried inside, but it was a restorative sleep without the jolts pain usually causes. When I woke up the next day, I didn't feel a miraculous change, but something was different. I got up more easily. The stiffness that always accompanied me in the mornings had softened. I walked to the kitchen without dragging my feet as much. I made breakfast and sat at the table without thinking about pain. Of course, there was still doubt inside me. I thought, maybe it's just a placebo effect. Maybe it's my mind wanting to believe. But even if that was true, that little relief was real. And if it worked one night, why not keep trying a few more? Sometimes, hope begins like this, with a small decision, with a simple action, with a doubt that turns into possibility. From the second to the fifth day, noticeable changes in the body. The second night I repeated the same ritual. Warm ginger oil, open hands, slow movements, and that silence that helps one listen within. There was not as much doubt as the first time. Something inside began to trust. Not the oil itself, but the fact of taking care of myself attentively. And the body, as if noticing, began to respond. I slept deeply again. But this time, when I woke up, it was clearer. The knees didn't hurt as much. It wasn't that they had suddenly healed, but that morning stiffness, that tension that made me stay seated a few more minutes, was gone. I got up and walked to the window. I did it without thinking, without leaning on the headboard, without grabbing the edge of the furniture. I just walked. It was a short distance, just a few steps, but I felt a lightness I hadn't remembered. The third day was even better. During a walk to the neighborhood store, I realized I was no longer dragging my feet. I didn't need to stop every few meters to rest. I felt I could move with a little more confidence. It was as if the old machinery had been oiled, as if the hinges no longer creaked so much. The most exciting came on the fourth day. I went down the building stairs without thinking. I did it like before, not jumping for joy or running, but not afraid either. And there I realized something that left me silent. It had been years since I walked without fear, because that was what had settled in me for so long. The constant fear of falling, tripping, not being able to return. I lived calculating every step, every movement, and now, suddenly, my legs were my allies again. Not perfect, not young, but mine once more. On the fifth day, my face changed, not only because of physical relief, but because something inside also loosened up. I started smiling more, speaking with more spirit. People who knew me asked what was happening, if I was doing something different. I answered with a calm smile. Nothing special, just a bit of ginger at night. And although I remained cautious, something inside me had reawakened. Because when the body hurts less, everything is experienced differently. You breathe differently. You walk with more faith. And the most valuable, you start recovering something many of us lose with age: hope. The emotional change, recovering freedom of movement. They say you don't value something until you lose it, and it's true. We spend years walking without thinking about our knees, our ankles, every step we take. It's something we take for granted, until one day the body starts asking permission. And then walking stops being natural, to become a challenge. That's why, when I started noticing I could move without so much pain, the first thing I felt wasn't physical relief. It was a kind of gentle, almost childlike joy. The feeling of doing something I thought was lost, like finding a part of myself again. One morning I decided to go for a walk alone. Not far, just a few blocks. I put on a coat, took my keys, and opened the door. And there I was, on the sidewalk, walking calmly, without a cane, without leaning on the wall. For the first time in a long time, I didn't look at the ground, fearing to trip. I raised my eyes, looked at the trees, the birds, the sky. I felt like I was part of the outside world again. That walk gave me back something I didn't know I had lost: independence. Little by little, I also started to resume other things. I went back to caring for my plants in the yard, to standing up to cook, to going to the park when my grandchildren came to play. Simple things, but that connected me with life. Every step was a small victory. And it wasn't just the body that changed. My mood did too. I began to stand taller, breathe deeper, to see the days with more color. When you stop feeling pain constantly, there is space for other emotions, for curiosity, for gratitude, for hope. Even my thoughts became kinder. I stopped telling myself, "You're old now. You can't anymore. Better not try." I started changing that inner dialogue for softer phrases. Today was better than yesterday. You're taking care of yourself. You still can. And recovering movement is not just moving legs. It's moving the soul too. Shaking off the dust of fear, tiredness, resignation. It's remembering that aging doesn't mean stopping, but adapting. And sometimes the first step to move forward starts with a small route, a daily gesture, a decision we take silently on an ordinary night. What you need to know before using it yourself. If you've come this far, you're probably considering trying ginger oil yourself. And I'm very glad. But before doing so, I want to tell you some important things. Because not everything natural is magical, and not everything good works the same for everyone. The first thing you need to know is this: ginger oil is not a miracle cure. It's not a pill that erases years of wear, nor a magic potion that makes diseases disappear overnight. It's a support, relief, help for your body. But it does not replace diagnosis or medical treatment if you need it. In my case, what I felt was a real, steady, and deep improvement. But it was not immediate, and it didn't happen without discipline. I applied it every night, without fail. I made it a small ritual, like watering a plant patiently, and that commitment was part of the result. If you use it just once, or stop after 2 days, you probably won't notice anything. The body needs time, just like the earth needs days to bear fruit. Second, there are situations where it's better to consult your doctor before using it. If you have very sensitive skin, open wounds, pronounced varicose veins, or a serious circulatory condition, it's better to ask first. Natural things can also have effects if used carelessly, especially if you're taking blood thinners or blood pressure medications. In those cases, ginger, even applied externally, can influence circulation. It is also not recommended to apply it in areas with excessive heat, acute inflammation, or in people with proven allergies to ginger. A good idea is to test first on a small area of your arm and observe how your skin reacts for a few hours. If all is well, you can continue. And the most important, if you decide to use it, do it with love, not as an obligation, nor with desperation. Take your time. Make the massage a quiet, intimate moment for yourself. Sometimes, more than the product, it's the way we use it that makes the difference. I discovered that this daily gesture helped me not only heal the body, but also the mind. It reminded me night after night that I could still do something for myself, that I still deserved care, tenderness, relief. So if you're going to try it, do it with faith, but also with realism. Don't expect miracles, Expect small changes, and when they come, celebrate them. Because when you learn to listen to your body with respect, the body responds, and that, in old age, is an immense gift. Sometimes, the most powerful things are not in the new, but in the forgotten. At this stage of life, one tends to think that simple things no longer work, that if it doesn't come in a box, with a prescription, or recommended by a specialist, it can't be effective. But over time, I have learned something different. Not everything simple is useless. Sometimes the wisest things come from before. My grandmother used to say, "What heals doesn't always have to hurt." And she was right. This oil, this humble root, taught me that. It taught me that it's not just about walking more, but about feeling free again. That when you regain movement, you also regain desire, smile, confidence. I'm not saying ginger will solve everything. Every body is different, and every story too. But if you try it with patience and care, it may surprise you, as it surprised me. Your steps may become lighter, your nights more peaceful, and your mornings regain that sense of possibility. You too deserve to walk without pain. You deserve to dress without rush, to go out without fear, to bend down to hug a grandchild, to care for a plant, to live without depending on another's hand every day. If you feel you've tried everything and nothing works, give this a chance. It doesn't cost much. It only asks for a few minutes each night, and best of all, it gives you back something priceless, the power to care for yourself. And before I say goodbye, I want to ask you something. Do you know someone who suffers from knee pain? A friend, a brother, a neighbor? Share this video with them. Maybe this information changes their week. Maybe even it changes something deeper. And if you decide to try ginger oil, do me a favor. Come back to this video in a few days and tell me your experience in the comments. I want to read you. I want to know how it went. Because here we are all learning, sharing, supporting each other. No one has all the answers, but together we can find new ways to live better. Thank you for being here.